In this lecture, we're going to wrap up our discussion of typography by setting some initial values. We can apply styles on a global level or block level. As always, it's considered good practice to establish default values for your theme. For example, our theme will be using the Rubik font for the entire document. At the moment, this is not true. We will need to configure the styles to set the default font. Let's get started. In your editor, open the theme.json file. We're going to switch our focus to the styles object. Inside this object, we can begin adding typography styles by adding the typography object. To begin, we're going to modify the font family by adding the font family property. If we hover our mouse over this property, we can verify the CSS property that gets modified by adding it. The value for this property must be a valid CSS value. As we've learned earlier, WordPress will create variables from our theme file. This includes font families. We can set this property to the following value: var wp preset font family u Rubik. Variables for font families are prefixed with the WP preset font family keyword. This prefix is followed by our slug. As a reminder, our theme doesn't have custom fonts loaded. This is a topic we'll tackle in the next lecture. As long as the property gets updated, we'll consider this solution a success. Let's try changing the font size by adding the font size property. This property will be set to 16px. Afterward, we can change the font style of our document by setting the font style property. For our theme, this property will be set to normal. I think it would be awkward if our entire document were italicized. Setting it to normal is considered standard. Let's move on to the next property, which is called font weight. The value for this property will be normal. Afterward, we're going to configure the line height by setting the line height property to inherit. Up next, we'll set the text decoration by adding the text decoration property with an initial value of none. Lastly, the casing can be configured by adding the text transform property. The value for this property will be none. I ran by this configuration really fast. However, none of these properties should be new to you. Once again, you can hover your mouse over these properties for the name of the CSS property that will be modified. As long as you have the schema in your file, a description should be available. Some of these values are the default values. It's not entirely beneficial to add them. However, it's never a bad idea to reset your CSS for backward compatibility. Before testing our code, let's try applying a font family to the site title block. By default, WordPress does not use our custom font as the default font family. Let's configure the site title block to use our custom font as the default font family. We can apply the same typography settings to a specific block. Inside the blocks section, we're going to update the core/site title object. Add the typography object to the block. Next, set the font family property to the following value: WP preset font family U Pacifico. We're not going to modify the other settings. Let's give our styles a test. For testing, let's try viewing the properties on the front end of our site. Using the developer tools, search for the body tag in the Elements panel. Perfect! Our styles were applied to the body element. Keep in mind, these styles will not be applied to elements that override these properties. This is simply a base. Let's check out the styles for the site title block. The font family is being set to Pacifico. Awesome! We're finished with exploring the typography options of our theme.